Welcome to Yedidia Shofet and welcome to Halacha of the week number 56. Today's question, which was addressed to the Chief Rabbi, is: Rabbi, I washed my clothing on Shabbat. I wanted to know what do I do now? So he's basically asking like this. We know Shabbat is a day of rest, correct? But not just a day of just rest, as if that you just sit around and do nothing. Shabbat's a day where you beautify the seventh day with your family, with more prayers and more learning, with more of a greater atmosphere that disconnects you from your everyday routine. By doing that, you're able to reach a much higher level of spirituality, of purpose, and many other things that will make a person to become a lot closer to God. So if you want to go on many subjects of Halacha and Musar, basically, if you want to go on the subject of laws and of refinement, Shabbat is one of the most complex ideas when it comes to this. I'm not here to tell you why Shabbat is good or about Shabbat. I'm just here to tell you a little bit about the laws. So we know that on Shabbat, it's not the routine in order to do your laundry, not the routine in order to do tedious work, which through the halachot, some things are permissible because you're doing for the sake of the food, you're doing for the sake of the meal, you're doing for the sake of what's about to happen at home. And some things are not permissible because that's the same routine that you use every day, and it's tedious and it takes away from Shabbat itself. So some things that we do, some things we don't do. The case is, this person, what did he do? He laundered his clothing. He woke up in the morning, he laundered his clothing, and he said, I forgot, it was Shabbat. So what happens with those clothing now that they're clean? Or in a case where, he says that, look, I want to go out Shabbat, I want to have freshly clean clothes. So he goes in the morning, puts them in the washing machine, has the washing machine do his job, and then he brings it upstairs. And then somehow upstairs he realizes, he reads in a book and says, you can't do this on Shabbat, as this is not a Shabbat form of way of living. So by these two cases, one who does it intentionally, one who does it unintentionally, it's two different outcomes. The one who does it unintentionally, he did that. So Shabbat, he doesn't wear it because he wants to show on Shabbat, I don't want to get any hana'ah, I don't want to get any pleasure for what was done on Shabbat. But I did it unintentionally, so after Shabbat, I'll be able to use it. The one who does it intentionally, he is given a kanas. He's given somewhat of a punishment to think about. What is a kanas? It's that the fact that you did something on Shabbat intentionally, and you wanted to do that intentionally to show that Shabbat doesn't make a difference to me. Well, that act, and now you feel bad about it, well, that act, you want to make sure to completely erase it. How do you erase it? So, for instance, in the case of laundry, you would take that same laundry and you'd wash it again. Or in that case of laundry, you throw it all over the floor and wash it again. Why would you do something like that? Because you wanted to show that what was done on Shabbat was not at all to my benefit. What was done on Shabbat, I did it intentionally, and the reason why I did it intentionally was because I needed it. Now you're showing that you don't need it, and you're showing that what was done on Shabbat, it didn't help me in any way, and because of that, you'll be able to just take it, you put it into the washer and dryer again, you make it, you clean it again, and you'll be able to use whatever needs to be done. The whole purpose of this is to remember and to remind oneself that Shabbat is a special day. It's a day that, just like how the saying is, what you cook is what you're going to eat, meaning how you prepare everything, it's how it's ultimately going to turn out. How you prepare the soil of a tree, how you give it its humidity, how you give it its atmosphere, is ultimately how the fruits are going to turn out. The same way is with Shabbat. How you prepare for Shabbat is how your Shabbat will turn out. Now, if you take that Shabbat and you're going to turn it into the preparation itself, it's not so enjoyable. So you want to make sure to hold this Shabbat with great reverence and to come into it relaxed, with a great feeling, and to realize that these ideas, these halachot that help us beautify Shabbat, aren't there for the purpose of limiting us for Shabbat, but for the purpose of making our Shabbat feel limitless. Basically make our Shabbat feel as if that we need it every single week, which we do, and which will ultimately further our week in our avodat Hashem, in our way of serving God, serving ourselves, serving our community, serving our friends. Shabbat Shalom.